Hi guys, my name's Mr. Lead, and today we're going to be starting the topic of body coordination. Now, in Year 8, we cover some body systems. We look at the digestive system, we look at the circulatory system, and the respiratory system. We see how those three systems are very closely linked together. We also cover the reproductive system. We're going to cover more body systems this time. More specifically, we're going to look at the body systems that have the role of communicating to the body. So we're going to answer the question, how does our body tell itself what to do? There are two main systems that we're going to look at. Firstly, the nervous system. You've probably heard of that one before, and it's the one that involves the brain. And secondly, the endocrine system. Not many people have heard of that one. We're also going to do a little bit, we're also going to look a little bit at psychology as well. The first thing we got to understand when we're looking at the topic of coordinated body systems, this is going to be more of an introduction lesson. We've got to understand some of the main processes that we see throughout our body. So one of the main processes you've got to understand is metabolism. Metabolism just refers to the chemical reactions that occur within our body. Now, our body is always metabolizing. Chemical reactions are occurring in our body all the time. The fact that I'm able to move is an example or is witness that chemical reactions are occurring. These chemical reactions, these metabolic reactions, can be broken up into two groups, and this is a really important thing to know. You can have catabolic reactions, which is where you see organic matter being broken down, and you also have anabolic reactions, which is where organic matter is built up. So say we had a large molecule, a catabolic reaction would break apart that molecule. And as a result, when you break it apart, you release energy. That's the benefit of a catabolic reaction. Whereas an anabolic reaction is where you use energy to create new molecules. So you'll see smaller molecules being pieced together to make a new molecule. One of the main chemical compounds, special chemicals that helps facilitate the majority of our body's metabolism is a special chemical called enzymes. Enzymes are a type of protein. Now, without enzymes, our body would not be able to function. Enzymes have the job of either breaking apart molecules, so that's catabolic reactions, or piecing molecules together. They work through a special system called a lock and key method. So what you've got to understand with enzymes is there are hundreds of different enzymes in our body, and every single enzyme does a different job. Every single enzyme will help facilitate a different reaction or help break apart or build together different types of compounds. And each of these enzymes, we can represent them a bit like this. Each of these enzymes are structured in a certain way, and only certain types of substrates will be able to fit in with that enzyme. And once they fit in, they will be broken apart, and the enzyme will have done its job. Key thing to note about enzymes is that they're a catalyst. They are not used up in a reaction. All right. Now, let's put this into some more context. Enzymes are used to digest food. There are three main types of nutrients. There are carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Enzymes are used to break down these three different nutrients. You break down carbohydrates till you get the fundamental pieces that all different types of carbohydrates are made up of. Usually that's glucose. Proteins are broken down to their fundamental pieces, which are amino acids, and lipids are broken down to their fundamental pieces, fatty acids and glycerol. And our body uses these different fundamental pieces in different ways. For example, we use glucose as a source of energy. That's why, carbohydrate is good for energy. We also use fats and oils as a source of energy and insulation. And we use amino acids from proteins as a source for growth and repair and making more enzymes, because remember, enzymes are made from proteins. They were made from amino acids. where can you find these enzymes? Well, for if we're talking about the digestive system, where we're breaking up these nutrients, enzymes are throughout the entire digestive system. Every different chemical that our digestive system uses probably has enzymes in it. Your saliva even has enzymes in it, because as you know, as soon as you put food in your mouth, those enzymes start to soften up and break apart that food, and the saliva doesn't get used up in the process. But enzymes are also found within cells as well. You'll find a lot of enzymes in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Now, so sometimes these nutrients are broken down. Sometimes these nutrients are broken down into their fundamentalist forms in our digestive system, but often that's not the case. Often we see these nutrients have to be passed into our bloodstream, which, by the way, our bloodstream is basically like the highways of our body. Our bloodstream is constantly taking nutrients and hormones. We'll talk about hormones later. Hormones, nutrients, and all sorts of things to different parts of the body. And so sometimes these nutrients need to be broken down further in different parts of the body and need to be broken down further within the cells. But there is a process involved in getting nutrients or getting just matter from one cell, so from one place to another. That process is usually diffusion. So diffusion is the net movement from particles from a high concentration to a low concentration. So, simple example, diffusion. Diffusion is a really common scientific concept. If you take a spray bottle and you spray it, as soon as you spray it, you've got a very high concentrated group of water or whatever particles you sprayed out. But eventually, that water will try and diffuse out and spread out to be in a much lower concentration. We can see in this diagram here, we got a lot of red particles on this side and yellow particles on this side, but as soon as we remove that barrier, the red and yellow particles will spread out. They're all spread out so that they're not as highly concentrated anymore. So diffusion is the way that we get, say, glucose into the bloodstream, and it's the way that it's often the way that we see matter passing into cells. I mean, there's a lot of other ways that cells can get matter into them. But diffusion is the main way we see oxygen and carbon dioxide pass through our bloodstream. So here we have the alveolus and we have a blood capillary. When the deoxygenated blood cells, like these blood cells full of carbon dioxide, come along, they have a high concentration of carbon dioxide. And out here, we have a low concentration of carbon dioxide. And so all the carbon dioxide is going to diffuse out into here. And then we have when we breathe in, we're breathing in more oxygen. We have a higher concentration of oxygen here, which is now going to pass into these cells. So diffusion is what helps us get our oxygen. Now, whenever we talk about body systems or our anatomy, we need to talk about and we need to understand the circulatory system, because the circulatory system literally contains the heart to our body. Basically, like I said, circulatory system is made up of blood vessels. They're the highways of our body. They are constantly carrying all sorts of nutrients and hormones everywhere. Our blood vessels are made up of arteries, which move away from the heart, capillaries, which connect arteries and veins, and then veins, which move towards the heart. All right. So blood is always pumped through the heart. The heart is the organ that facilitates and makes sure that blood is consistently going through all these veins and arteries and vessels, rather. And the heart is regulated by something called a pacemaker, which is more specifically known as the sinoatrial node. Now, this sinoatrial node is a little thing that exists in the heart, and it sends electrical impulses into the cardiac muscle, which is the heart's muscle, to cause it to contract and relax and cause it to create the heartbeat that we know. But the thing is that the sinoatrial node works independently from the brain. That's right. So we're going to learn in this topic that not everything in your body is actually controlled by the brain. So, like I said, the sinoatrial node helps create the rhythm of the blood flow that we know. And when it stops working, we sometimes, that's why when we get a I can never say this word right, a defibrillator, there we go, a defibrillator to restart the pacemaker, to send an electrical current back into it so that it can keep going and keep regulating the heart. So the question is, though, how does our heart know when to beat faster and slow down? Well, the thing is that our heart has to respond to environmental stimuli. Here we're going to start to see this idea of body coordination and body system interdependence at play here. The heart will beat faster when certain hormones are pumped through it or through into the bloodstream. Now, a hormone is just any sort of chemical that acts as a messenger to the body. A hormone is just a chemical messenger. So when the body releases hormones, such as specific hormones, that is, such as noradrenaline will be sent through the bloodstream and will tell the sinoatrial node to beat faster, beat the heart faster. And the body will usually release noradrenaline in response to fear or stress. That's why when you suddenly get a shock, you can feel your heart rate just jump. You can also see our heart rate increase when we see a chain of events occur that is started by some vigorous exercise. When you exercise, your muscles are using up more and more oxygen for cellular respiration, which means it's producing more and more carbon dioxide, which means your body's like, hey, we're recepting and we're getting some information. We're detecting that the carbon dioxide levels are a bit too high, and we need to increase the rate at which we pump blood so we can increase and get more of that oxygen. And as well as detecting that CO2 levels rise, we can also detect that there is more blood that is being pushed out from our body and into the heart, and the heart's walls will stretch, and we'll see more muscle movement in the atriums, and so that means that when we see receptors detect this stretch in the atriums, and we see receptors detecting the increases of CO2 concentrations, then we see nerve signals being sent to the peripheral nervous system, and then back. We'll talk about what that is later, and then back to the heart to tell the heart to beat faster. So, in terms of what happens in cells, what you've got to understand is this process: cellular respiration. This is a really, really key process to note. This is where we see glucose. Remember, that was nutrients that was from carbohydrates, but fundamental nutrients. We're seeing in cellular respiration, we're seeing glucose being broken down to release energy. Now, I want you to figure out if the glucose is being broken down and energy is being released, is it catabolic or anabolic? I'll let you figure that one out. So this happens a lot in the mitochondria. Remember, the powerhouse of the cell. That's where we see lots of enzymes happening. And we're also seeing in the cell proteins being produced, and that's occurring in the ribosomes. So if we're seeing proteins being put together, is that catabolic or an anabolic reaction? So on the cellular level, we're seeing interdependence between the different organelles. You're not going to see ribosomes packaging and making proteins if they don't have the energy given to them by the mitochondria. And you're not going to see the mitochondria making this energy if they don't have the proteins within them to break apart the glucose. Now, when you have all these chemicals going through the body, eventually some of those chemicals are not needed anymore, and some of those chemicals are just considered wastes. For example, leftover hormones, we don't need those anymore. That's just waste. Also, sometimes there are some chemicals that we consider toxins, and toxins need to be removed from the body. Say, for example, ammonia. Ammonia is created as a byproduct for when you break down proteins. So these extra toxins and hormones and other stuff, we need to get that out of the body somehow. That's where our liver comes into play. Our liver has the job of trying to remove and break down waste, and it does this by our blood sends all this waste to the liver, and our liver will break it down and send those broken down bits of waste to the kidneys. That's as urea. And then the kidneys will have the job of filtering out the last bits of waste and then send that to the bladder for us to excrete out as urine. So that's why when you're getting rid of urine, the main job of you getting rid of urine is not just to get rid of excess water, it's to get rid of, it's a way to safely get rid of all that waste and dilute it through that water, that excess water. By the way, with the term toxins, toxins is unfortunately a term that's thrown around a lot these days in pseudoscience. You see ads for special diets with special detoxifying foods. This is absolute rubbish. There's no such thing as detoxifying. And generally, if you have a buildup of toxins, then that's just going to mean you're just going to have a buildup of certain chemicals that will eventually just make you sick, such as a buildup of alcohol. Anyway, so what we've covered here is we've looked at all the different processes that are involved in our body systems. And we see that all these different processes involve different body systems that are really highly linked. We often so easily just categorize body systems as the respiratory system and the digestive system, the circulatory system, the excretory system, but we see now that all these systems are actually really interconnected. And the things that hold all these systems together and can help these systems communicate with each other are the endocrine systems and the nervous system. So that is what we're going to look more into later. Thanks for watching.